Thank you to our sponsors, Little Voices. Are you a teacher with a passion for drama, music and performance, or feeling stuck in the classroom? Little Voices gives you the chance to step into a role where you can truly inspire young minds through the arts. This is a company I know well and admire. They're passionate about child development, highly rated and genuinely transformative. With small group teaching, a focus on confidence and creativity, with the opportunity to guide children through Lambda qualifications, you can make a real impact. Plus, with the support of a nationwide franchise network behind you, you can run your own successful business, doing what you love while teaching in a way that truly fits your life.
Hello, and welcome to the Pit Pony podcast with myself, Sharon Corley,
and me, Sarah Dunwood,
in which we talk to teachers from all walks of life who exited the classroom from what they thought was a job for life and thrived on the other side of teaching. Coming up in this episode...
I can't do this till I'm 60. I was early 20, so I cannot do this for 40 years. So in my mind, it was almost like, well, that pension, I'm never getting to that full pension pot. So what's the point in me sticking around for even 10 years seemed like a lot? Because I thought, I'm never going to have a full pension. I'm not going to get to have a full pension. So what's the point? And I knew in those first few years, there's no way I can do 40 years of this.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Pit Pony podcast, which should actually be landing with you a couple of days before Christmas. So I hope you've got a mulled wine or a Baileys or a coffee and you're settling into what I know is going to be a great episode with a friend of ours, Danielle Crossland. And I want to tell you a little bit about Danielle before we get into her story and what she's doing now. Danielle started teaching in 2012 and she's a maths teacher and taught for 10 years. 3 years in a high school, 7 years in a sixth form college. But we'll get into that with Danielle. But was an interesting one with her, Sarah, and you'll like this. When we have our Pit Pony guests on, they talk about born to teach. I'd lined up my teddy bears and I was doing this. Oh, Danielle, thought it was something I could be good at. I did it. I enjoyed being in front of the kids, but you know what? It wasn't my burning desire. It wasn't my vocation. A shaft of light didn't come down on her, which is great. And actually, while she was a teacher, her mum, again bucking the trend, was saying, if you don't like it, get out. So we've got an unusual Pit Pony in this respect, but a great and fascinating story with, I think, a lot of our listeners will get something from this as ideas. So Danielle, welcome. And can you tell us what it is you do today?
Hi, Sharon and Sarah. So what I do at the minute is I run my own business, which is called Edge of Accounts, and it is everything bookkeeping.
Oh, I think that's probably pricked up a few ears, isn't it? Because it's a great next chapter, I think, for teachers, and we are going to pick your brains on behalf of our listeners here. But before we do that, let's spend some time with Danielle Crossland, the maths teacher, and to the untrained ear, the northwest of England in the Scouse regions of the northwest. But putting that to one side. Danielle, tell us a bit about your time as a teacher. Where do you want to start us with your story?
So I did a psychology degree and left that. And my mum was like, oh, so are you a psychologist now? And I was like, no, it doesn't quite work like that. And I just got a job in a school just because it gave me some money. I thought, I was a HLTA in a maths department. I thought, yeah, I could do this. Loads of jobs in maths. So it was a bit more of a strategic, I knew that there'd be a lot of demand for maths teachers. So I went and did a maths enhancement course in MMU, which was great, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. It was really good. And then I went into teaching and it was pretty much like, well, I'll always have a job. And I taught in a school, which was tough. That school went from from outstanding to special measures in my first year of teaching, which was really, really tough. It was such a tough job, and I stuck it out for another couple of years, and then I was like, I need to get out. I need to get out of this. It's either get out and give it another go somewhere else, or just get out of teaching. So I thought I'll try somewhere else and I'll just see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, I'm done. Because it was tough in the school. So I went.
When you say tough, what was tough about it?
Just the flip-flopping around, because it went from outstanding to special measures. I mean, when I started, which isn't even that long ago, it was 2012, there was no internal email system. There was no shared drive. It was like a whole other world to now. And it wasn't that long ago. I'm not like that old. No, it wasn't that long ago. But it just, they were in this it was like, we're outstanding, we're great. And then it went to special measures. So I was like, whoa. And all these things had to be put in place. And it was just flip-flopping around. And there'd be a new initiative one week and then you'd be doing it. And then the next week it was gone. And it was like, oh, we're doing something else. And it was tough. I remember being in an Ofsted. I think it was the Ofsted that we went into special measures. And the Ofsted inspector was in there and it went awful. The kids were being horrendous, like worse than... It was like a disaster lesson, and I was crying after it and speaking to the inspector, and he was like, "Are you being supportive?" He was actually pretty, and I felt a lot of responsibility on me, but he was like, "It's your first year, are you being supportive?" He was actually pretty good, but I felt like it was all my fault. But yeah, we went into special measures, and that was tough. And then I just knew I needed to get out of there anyway.
And I think, Sarah, that's quite a refreshing attitude. Well, it's certainly a different attitude than what we get, because it's almost Danielle's gone in, but she's not locked in. She's not considered that this is it and I've got to stay and it's the pension and it's... Because we didn't do that. There was no way we were coming out. We were lifers.
Yeah. I mean, it's unusual. Not wishing to bang on about something that we have mentioned a number of times, but I do think it is generational, because Danielle is a good bit younger than you and I, and I think it's the right attitude. If it's not right, go.
Yeah, I knew from then that I was thinking, I can't do this till I'm 60. I was early 20s, so I cannot do this for 40 years. So in my mind, it was almost like, well, that pension, I'm never getting to that full pension pot. So what's the point in me sticking around for even 10 years, seemed like a lot? Because I thought, I'm never going to have a full pension. I'm not going to get to have a full pension. So what's the point? And I knew in those first few years, there's nowhere I can do 40 years of this or more, because who knows what the pension age will be. But I just knew.
No, I think that's really healthy, because what you've captured is something that I then try to implant in people's mindset when they have unravelled. It is just a job, and using just in the sense that we should use it, not I'm just a teacher. It really is just a job. It is something in many respects that pays your bills, and it's all the emotional attachment that we put to teaching, the guilt, the vocation, the kids. If more people, and I do think the younger generation do have that attitude more. This is a job, and it is tied to your self-worth, and it's tied to your life, really. I want a life. And I think what you realised quite early doors was that this isn't going to give me the life I want, really, and no apology needed. I think it's a real piece that needs unpicking with a lot of our pit ponies, really. Yeah. You know, you're not a missionary in the Congo. You are literally a teacher in a school. But you did 3 years at the tough place, and I know what you mean about there's an initiative for this and an initiative for that, and then every department's got the same initiative. So you're on a literacy focus or a numeracy focus I get it. And I'm sure many of our listeners can just go straight back to those days. Still staggered that there was no internal email system in 2012. I mean, good God. But that aside, you decide to go for 7 years. 7 years at a sixth form college. What was that like?
So I actually started that job 27 weeks pregnant. So I was desperate to go to the school. And I found out I was pregnant like a day or so after the job interview. And I thought, well, why can't I have that job? Because no man, my husband's not going for a job because he's pregnant. So I took the job at the college. And then and I thought, well, I'd had a miscarriage in the past, and I thought, well, I'm not going to turn down this job because who knows what will happen. And then I plucked up the courage to go and speak to the college, and I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. And I felt awful, and I cried because that's just one thing I just do all the time. And they were like, no, it's fine. And they were absolutely fine about it. So I started 27 weeks pregnant. So I started in August because in sixth form, she starts in August. And I went off by October half term. And I did 6 months, and then I went back in the June just after the exam, so there was no more teaching. But they were absolutely fine over it. They saw the long-term gain, and they said, well, it's no different to many of our other staff getting pregnant and going on maternity leave. So, yeah, it's fine, which was quite a good omen, really. I thought, this is pretty good place. And I mean, when I started in the college, we were doing 3-hour lessons. So I remember thinking, I hope this goes. Yeah, so it was an attendance thing because getting post-16 re-sitters to attend, 3 times a week was tough. So they had this bright idea of 1 3-hour lesson. And I thought, I hope this goes by the time I'm back. And luckily, when I came back, they'd scrap that because it didn't work. So it's
Wonder why.
But I really enjoyed it. Again, back to a place where I think there was an email system, but there was no shared drive. So back to basics again, kind of. But we had so much freedom, and the management were great. And I wouldn't say I lived and breathed teaching, but I could do it. I could do it easily. It was something I enjoyed in the moment. It was a job. Paid the bills by doing something that's not too bad. The day passed quickly, so I stayed. And then there was a change of management, and I started going more and more school like with the book scrutinies and the learning walks and stuff like that. I thought, I'm not doing this.
I love it.
So I am the type of person where if I don't agree with something, I'm like, nope, I'm off. And during COVID, I realised I loved working from home. And by this point I was on my second maternity leave, and I had 2 young kids, and I just thought, no, it doesn't work for me. I knew I could do the job well. I wasn't overly passionate about it, but I could do it well. And I did always put the effort in, but I thought, well, I could put the effort into something else just as much and enjoy that just as much. So yeah, I decided to leave. And I kind of had this plan of, I'll just tutor, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do because it's a lot of evenings and weekends, and I was never really interested in international tutoring. In all honesty, I didn't think I was a good enough maths teacher because I'd only taught resit GCSE maths for so long, and I thought, it'd be hard to go back. But I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I'm a maths teacher, we're in demand. I could do supply, I can get another job, I can retrain, ends up doing everything.
You see, what's interesting listening to you is, and I don't know if you've navel-gazed about this yourself, but where do you think that attitude came from? That it's just a job, I'm good at it, I can do this. If I want to leave, I can leave. What gave you that kind of, I don't know, safety net, that kind of confidence to have that within a world of teaching when it is, to a certain extent, now I know we have an echo chamber, quite a refreshing and different way of looking at your job. Where do you think that confidence and self-assurity came from?
I don't know.
Could it be your mother who was saying, bloody get out? Did she see something on Facebook? What's Danielle?
So when we was in the school, we did fancy dress once, and this was the time when I was so stressed. I mean, I lost loads of weight, and it was before I got pregnant, and I was just so stressed and things. And we'd done fancy dress for, it wasn't Halloween. Oh, it must have been what did he call it? What did the kids do? Was it something like that maybe? And my department, we all dressed up as OAPs. So we all went to charity shops and got my old skirts and all stuff like this. And I'd put like makeup on to make it look like I had bags under my eyes and wrinkles. At this point, I was 23 or 24 maybe. And I put a photo on Facebook. And my mum commented saying, "Oh, Danielle, that job's going to kill you." You look shocked. Like, what? It's like fancy dress. Like, that's not my face. But yeah, she was always very she'd just say, "Oh, just leave, you can do something else." And without sounds a big headed, I think I am quite a capable person. I could, easily go into something else and retrain and do something else. I mean, I'm the first person in my whole family to have gone to university. None of them ever really went to college or uni or anything, and most of my friends are teachers because we all like to geek within.
Very incestuous, yeah.
Yeah. But both of my parents are were like, just working class normal jobs. My dad's a plumber, and he's always gone from job to job. I suppose he's always landed on his feet, and they always have, they always did like land on the feet and things. So it was very much just, what will be, will be.
A lot of the teachers I talk to, and they can be in their 40s and 50s, when they are considering leaving, one of the reasons they stay is for fear of disappointing their parents. It's a really bizarre people-pleasing kind of mindset that they get into, where they're like, my parents were so proud, with exactly the same setup that you've just said. First generation university, there was no other teachers in the family, they were blue collar workers. They were so proud I became a teacher. How can I tell them I'm not teaching when they thought that was the prize, that was the job for life, that was your pension? How could you be so stupid to think of leaving teaching? Your family have flip-flopped the complete opposite, which is, you're capable, you'll get something else. And I think if I am to be reflective, I think that's maybe something that as parents we need to consider when we are role modelling for our children, that if you don't have to do something for life, you can move, you're not a tree. So I think it's been a really good insight into that different kind of attitude. But the bit that I want to ask you about is, you've got this great job, you like it, you're doing 7 years. I know it's getting a little bit more book looks and learning walks, but what makes you suddenly go, no, I'm leaving? Why did you come to that decision?
So it was it would have been after COVID and things, and after all the lockdowns and stuff, and it was about November, and I was just exhausted. I think November's the hardest month in teaching. And I just had to take a few days off because I just didn't feel right. I just felt absolutely exhausted because although it was much easier than teaching, it was still tiring, having kids and life, and I was just absolutely exhausted. And I took a few days off sick, and I felt like I'm not really sick, but I just wasn't right. And people take it's like mental health days and things, and I'd never considered myself as having a mental health issue or anything ever, but I just felt exhausted. So I took a few days off, and I stumbled across the Pip Pony videos on Facebook and YouTube, and I watched it and I thought, yeah, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go. This is and I sent it to somebody I worked with, and she actually handed their notice in as well.
Jesus Christ.
So I just thought, no, I'm not going to do this. And it wasn't the worst job. We didn't do any work after 4:30. We did no work the weekend, unless there was maybe mocks that we had to turn around quite quickly. And to a lot of people, it was a good job. The head teacher was amazing. I remember being in a little meeting with the head teacher and a few other teachers, and someone said, "Oh, it's great, whoever covered me last week so I could go to the kids' performance or something." She was like, so they should, we all should be supporting each other. And she was amazing. But the management above me was just starting to get more and more micromanaging, and, being managed by someone who can't do my job, but still telling me how to do my job. And I thought, no, I know how to do this. And if you're not happy with the way I'm doing it, I'm off. So I just decided to leave. But obviously, teacher guilt, I stuck around until the summer because I just couldn't face leaving them because it's so hard to get cover in for the last part of the year, and I just couldn't face leaving them. So there was some teacher guilt, and I stayed until summer. But I just thought, nah, I'm done. I've done my 10 years. I'm going to try something else.
Wow, Sarah. Reflections, please. That's a really different kind of story, isn't it, that we normally get?
It's a really empowered position to be. So it's not even not being bothered. It's being in control, isn't it? No, that's not right. I'm not doing that. I'm not having that. As we say quite often, pack it in. I'm off. How glorious is that? And I think it would be really interesting because there'll be a lot of people who listen or watch who go, oh God, I wish I could be like that, or I wish I had been like that. Because I was listening to you thinking, yeah, probably about 2014, I started thinking, oh, is this for me? And I fell into all of the traps: the pension, the level of income without actually cross-referencing it to how much work I was actually doing. And I think if somebody had been on my shoulder 11 years ago and gone, do you know what? You're only in your early 40s. You can still retrain. You can still do this. You can still do that. I'd have gone. I really do. But I didn't have that. I didn't have that internal voice that would tell me that. And there wasn't I was very mired in teaching is my life. It's all my friends are there. It was, I was fully in. So I feel a little bit jealous, to be honest, listening to you that.
But don't you also think, because Sarah and I have branched out in the world now, so even though we've got a lot of teacher friends, we've got a lot of people we've got a lot of normal friends as well. And I'd be really interested to play the first part of this podcast to people who we know who were not in teaching. They might be civil engineers, or, they might be working in media or design or something. And they'd be going, right, what is stunning about somebody who did something for a couple of years, went, nah, it's not really floating me boat, this. I think I'm going to try somebody else. Why are you staggered? Why is this even a conversation point? Because outside of the teaching world, that's how people are. They are incredibly well boundaried. They talk about, am I entitled to my leave? And then they don't fit their leave around when they think there is the least amount of a pinch point in the work's calendar. They take leave. They do things like, well, I'm going to make the most of this because there's a bank holiday on the Monday. So if I get the Tuesday off, I can stretch my weekend to this. It's a totally different world. And I think the more we are exposed to that level of liberation and boundaries and self-worth, the more people will stay in teaching, because if you can make yourself boundaried within the classroom, go respectfully, no, I can't do that. I've got too much on my plate. It's not possible to do it. It would be amazing to be able to push back at these management people with, I know my rights, is something we've banged on about for years. But
can I jump in? It is doable, because keep saying this, there are places where that happens. There are schools, there are leaders that support that.
Funnily enough, when I was at the college, I was a bit of a trouble causer, as you could probably imagine. So in the college, we got holidays. We didn't just get the holidays off. So we got set amounts of holidays and set amounts of working from home days. And some of the teachers would almost just, if the manager says, oh, we need so many people in over half term, they just go in. I'd like, nope, you've not got enough holidays left. And I had a spreadsheet that everybody used, as you can imagine. I had a spreadsheet that everybody could use. And I was like, you get all your holidays. And I was like, we don't do this. And I was the trouble causer who's make sure that everyone got what they were entitled to. And I didn't.
And again, I'm going to look at that language. I was the trouble causer. How's that causing trouble when you know what your rights are? And it is a teacher mindset. I stood up for myself. I asked questions. I got what I was entitled to. And 9 times out of 10, when those words come out of somebody's mouth, I know they then put a target on their back. And this is the piece of work that needs to be done in our education system. It is a movement from feeling guilt and I've caused trouble. Well, do you agree, Sarah?
Yeah, and we see it loads in the group with specific things like part-time. But I've been told I've got to come in on an inset day, but it's not my normal working day. The answer is a flat no. It is a flat no. Well, if they've said this, they can say everything that they want to say, but the law says no, and your contract says no. But I don't want to make trouble. But it's your entire, and it's that. I know you call me Schrodinger all the time because I'm always sat between. But it is that you're either. Oh, I'm going to say something that's probably going to get me cancelled on the internet now. There's something wrong and you want to do something about it and you are given the tools. Here are your contractual and statutory rights. Here's the protection in legislation. You can't then go, oh, but no, I don't want to do that because it might. Well, if you don't want to do it, then don't complain about it. That is my stance now. Anybody can give you all of the advice in the world, but if you're not prepared to take that advice and act on it, then you stop at that point being able to complain about the circumstance that you're in.
Yeah.
Because only you can take responsibility for changing the position that you're in. And I think that cycles back to where we are with how Danielle was. No, this is not right for me anymore. No,
there's just a step before that. And we talk about boundaries all the time. Okay, they are so important. People with a healthy mental health and with a good mindset are boundaried. Now, people think that a boundary is when you just say no. And you put yourself first and you express your needs, or you say no, or you troublemaker, whatever it is. A boundary is putting down your needs, your wishes, and your decisions. People can do that. I'll send the email and then I'll say I'm not doing it. And then they worry for 3 weeks after it. A healthy boundary is not about the action you take. It is about the impact you allow it to have afterwards. A healthy boundary is when you say, I'm sorry, that's not my problem to sort out. Okay? I am aware that you have very short-staffed on Monday. I am not coming in. It is not my problem to sort out. It gets pushed back to you. Then you get on with it. Then you totally disregard the impact that has had on the other person. Don't collapse into panic after you've set a boundary. And if you can walk away, that's when it's really healthy.
Saw something on the talk last night, which was about a subtlety in language. You know, the difference between people saying, no, I can't do that, as opposed to I don't do that. So to give you an example, the example they gave was somebody calling a meeting after 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. If you say I can't, it's actually still an invitation to the person on the other side to try and persuade you.
Yeah.
I can't do that meeting on Wednesday. And they will go, well, maybe if you do this, that, and the other. If you say I don't do meetings after 5 o'clock on a Wednesday because I pick my child up. Full stop. I don't is harder for somebody to wrangle with and try and persuade you. And I just thought it was really interesting.
It is
in
good,
the context of boundaries. But you are so right. It's that thing that we've said so many times. The amount of times where somebody will be sat there thinking and thinking and thinking about something 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, all the rest of it, when the person who's received the message, who's had the pushback, is now not giving it a second thought because they've moved on to something else. We absorb too much. So it's really, I wish we could bottle whatever it was that Danielle had that just went, no, it's okay. I will find something else.
And I think what I tend to do when I am making my final boundary, no or yes, whatever, is, and I am comfortable with my decision, I no longer wish to discuss this. Full stop. And I am comfortable with my decision. Yeah, but can you not do this? I am comfortable with my decision. I'm bringing this discussion to an end. And then walk away in that comfort that there's no impact. What's the worst you can do? Nothing. The worst I can do is now worry about this. And I think over the last couple of years, we became very, very much more educated about toxicity. We got a language surrounding toxicity. We talk about gaslighting and love bombing and breadcrumbing and all sorts of different things that helped us understand certain things that were happening to us. My prediction as we enter the year of the horse for 2026 is that we are going to start to become way more educated in the language of boundaries. We are going to become way more educated in how to internalize when we have put a boundary in. And I think that's the next piece that's going to happen within our culture about putting ourselves first without then collapsing in the need to make it okay because we've done so. So, with that in mind, you've put your notice in. You've seen out this class. And I think you think it's going to be tutoring, don't you? Because that's how our paths cross a lot, because we've networked together on so many occasions. You decide, do you, that, okay, tutoring is going to be my first stab?
Yeah. So I decided to do tutoring, and I knew groups would be the way to make money, but I always struggled to get groups going because, you know, you've got a slot that's empty and it's like, I'm saving that slot for a group. And it was just that, well, I've got this offer of a one-to-one lesson of, you know, I need to take that because I've got nothing in that slot anyway. And groups didn't work out. So I did a bit of tutoring, but then I, on the off chance, just applied for a job at a charity, and got it. And I did one job interview, and it was bid writing, which, as a maths teacher, I was going from maths to a lot of writing. Don't know what I thought it was, but it was to do with money. So it was like, you know, funds, and I thought it was to do with more money. It just to do with the more of the money side, but it was actually a lot of writing. But it was also a lot of data, and using a system called Salesforce. And I thought, I actually quite like this. I like systems. This is what I'm good at. And it took me a good, 6 months out of teaching to think, what is that I want to do? Like, what am I good at? And what do I enjoy? I like working from home. I like systems. I like numbers. I like money. So yeah, although it wasn't the job, it was convenient. It worked well for me. And I did the job and I did it well. And, they were lovely. Like, the management were lovely. And it was so nice to not be micromanaged anymore. And really enjoyed that. But it just wasn't quite for me. And I thought, well, I'll stick out until it's convenient for me, kind of thing. And I did the job, I did it well and everything. but I thought this isn't it. So I was thinking of other things that I could do. And then I actually lost my mum in the March really, really suddenly. She was only 62. I thought, God, I could be in teaching until after 62. Like, there's no way I'm going back to that. And, it just made me realise, like, yeah, I definitely need, it's a need to be out of teaching. And so I lost my mum in the March, but they were amazing about it. And obviously, out of teaching, you don't get extended leave. I didn't get tons of sick leave and bereavement leave and things like that, but they let me have 2 weeks off even though I wasn't entitled to it. And they let me have it off. And then when I did go back, they kind of just left me alone. And I was officially working, but they weren't really expecting much from me. And I always think I could not have been in teaching. I couldn't have taught while I lost my mum, because I couldn't have stood back up in front of the class 2 weeks after. And you see stories of people who've gone in a day after, and I just think I couldn't have. I was still crying every day for like 6 months. I could not have gone back into class. But working from home, it was manageable, and I could do that. But yeah, I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I started looking into other options, and I was thinking, should it be a mortgage broker? Should it be a financial advisor, or like, what can I do? And I like numbers, I like systems, like, what can I do? And I came across bookkeeping, and I thought, well, that's where I could still work with people, because a lot of people struggle with numbers and struggle with maths and money. And I'd found it frustrating in the college that we was teaching kids who, we call them kids, but they weren't kids. They were post 16, and they were doing maybe like a plumbing course or an electrician course. And we were teaching them reset maths. We were teaching them absolutely nothing about money and finances. And these people were going to go and be self-employed. And, we weren't teaching them anything about how to eventually run their own business and be, manage the tax and everything like that. And I thought, I think bookkeeping would be quite good, because I can still work with people and I can still help them in a way. And I can still almost teach them in a way, but it's not teaching. Because I do think there is a little bit of teaching in it, because when I'm working with people, I'm coaching them along, getting things together and things like that. So I started doing that course, and I was doing it from home of an evening around the kids, and I flew through it because I was really into it, and I just found it, I just really enjoyed it. So I did the level 2 and level 3. And then after I had done the level 3, I was able to get a practice license. So, but before that, I'd left the charity. So I left the charity at the end of August, and I thought I'll do supply. So the plan was to do supply until I finished the course and I could bookkeeping practice. And while on supply, as you can imagine, me being me, I became quite a hard negotiator. So I knew they wanted me more than I wanted them. So I would play the agencies off against each other, and I ended up negotiating quite a good rate.
It's an interesting piece around this, because me and you have talked about this in supply rates. So let's just go back to actually what your good day rate was and what you did. So how much did you end up on a day rate for supply?
$220 a day. But I think I could have pushed that a bit more at certain times of the year. I realised, so when I started, I think I started on £140 a day. But it was early September. There wasn't a lot of demand. And I thought, I can't play these off against each other yet, because there's not the demand there. And then as it was getting into the school year, I could see that the agencies were phoning me more than I was phoning them. And I thought, they want me more than I want them. And I'd started going to a school who wanted me back. I mean, most schools that I went to, they wanted me back. Not like a big-headed thing, but it does happen that the schools want you back. And I thought, well, if they want me, I'm going to tell the agency that I want more money, because they only want me. So the power's in my hands almost. And I'd play the agencies off against each other. I mean, it did trip me up once, and I did say to one agency that I'd been offered more, and I was speaking to the same agency. But yeah, anyway, it works.
Would they say, like, we want you to do a day's work and we'll pay you this? So what was your response to them then when they'd say, we'll pay you 180? What would you say?
Well, I'd say, oh, well, I've been offered 200 for tomorrow. If you can beat it, I'll be there. And they'd say, okay, yeah. And I just knew that if I had pushed back, they'd go, okay, yeah. I thought there's a lot of leeway here. You're not having to go and speak to any managers. And I thought, I can get more. So I played them off against each other in a way. And it was funny because I had a call with a new agency and started the call. My husband was actually from home, working from home that day. And I started the call and he was like, oh, so the most we can pay is 150 a day. I said, we might as well just finish. I'm not working for 150 a day. At this point, I was only on 180. I'd only gradually got up to 180. It was probably about October time. I said, if you want me to do any days, there's no way I'm doing less than 180. And instantly he says, okay, yeah, we can do 180. And I thought, without you having to even go and ask anybody, you can instantly say, yeah, 180 is fine. So I thought, I could probably go even further. But what I always did was, I always waited until I built a good reputation and a good relationship with either the agency or the school, and then I pushed it a little bit further, and I just kept pushing it a little bit further. And I didn't really try and push it any further after 220 a day because I didn't need it anymore. But yeah, I just knew that they needed me more than anything.
But if you think about it, anybody listening to this now is thinking about going on supply. Now, obviously, what you've said is that didn't happen from the get-go when you were starting out with your reputation. But you're the mathematician. If you did that for 5 days in a week, what's your take home at the end with 5 times 220? How much are you taking home?
Over £1,000, 1,100. Yeah,
£1,100 a week on supply. If you did that for a month, it's £4,500. Now, I know you've got all sorts of stuff going on. You don't get paid in the summer and everything. But people will very quickly dismiss supply. I don't want to do supply. I don't want to do supply. And I have always said supply cannot be talked about with one title of supply. There are so many different ways to approach supply teaching. In the first instance, it's temporary. It is a lifeboat option. Do not base it upon your experience when you were embedded into a school and you just hear these horror stories of supply teachers coming in. I think if you do supply with the right mindset, and again, boundaried, I am going in, I am delivering, I've got my bag of tricks, I will give it my all when I'm in there. And then I can walk out and totally detach from that day's work. 220 is not a bad rate. Particularly, would that have included the work being set for you?
Oh, yeah. So in secondary, you never set the work. I always say, I think as teachers, we are very lucky that there is a backup plan. Because my husband, if he was made redundant tomorrow, what's his backup plan? What can he phone up and say, right, I'll be there tomorrow? There's not much that he could do. He couldn't just leave a job and have this pretty well paid backup plan. Nurses can do it because they've got bank work in the same way as supply, but I don't think there's many industries where you've got a plan B, which is actually pretty well paid. And I mean, it's not the best, is it? It's not. It can be tough. There can be tough days, but you can get through them, and you're not going to have sleepless nights over it because there's no emotional attachment there. It's just, it was a bad day. Whatever. I don't have to come back.
If you're going in not taking things personally, if you're going in with resilience, if you're going in with a clear expectation, we had a great guest, James Terry. James Terry loved doing supply. There was another guy who, Mark, he was working as an actor's chaperone. He loved his supply. If you go in and you cherry pick what you do and you've got the right attitude, over £1,000 a week as a lifeboat, people listening to this outside of teaching and go, well, what do you want me to do for £1,000 a week? Stand in front of a class and kids are dickheads in front of me. Go on, I'll do that. Or go in and they're not. Go in because you're in a good department who know how to set a supply teacher up for a successful day. Because when I was working in schools, we never let our supply teachers get rinsed in the English department, nor on our watch. The work was set, we went in, we checked, everything was okay. And it was a tough school in Warrington. But I'm glad you've brought up that topic of supply. Now, I know, Sarah, when you were a deputy and you were in a tough school, your supply, I don't know what their experiences were when it was on your shift.
I would say on the basis of if any of them are listening, highly varied, and it really depended what groups they got and what member of staff was absent, and we would tactically deploy sometimes as well in terms of not bringing a supply member of staff in and putting them in that one classroom all day. We might move them around, particularly because we did have some groups that, let's just leave that one hanging. Yeah, I can't even think of a polite way of saying that. It was like being fed to the lions. But we were the same. Where my classroom was, if there was a supply teacher in the classroom next to me or on the corridor that was near me, I wasn't the only person who would go in and check in on them as a senior member of staff. Other members of staff would just kind of poke the head round, make sure everything was all right, because they are your colleagues, and they might only be your colleagues for a day or a week, but they're still your colleagues. And so that was the attitude we had in our school. I don't think that's the case in all schools.
Oh no,
I think supply is supply teachers are, and just listen to the language that we use. We refer to adults as supply. No, they're not. They're supply teachers, and it's become embedded. And I think in some schools it is very cultural. If you are not part of that team, and you are there for a day or a couple of days, you could end up sat in the staff room by yourself, like Billy No Mates, and walk in and walk out. But for some people, that's okay. For some people, it's not.
I did have some tough days. There were some schools which were tough, but there was nothing better than at the end of the day thinking, well, thank God I don't work there. Thank God that's not my job full time.
Yeah.
And I'd just be in the agency and say, take me off the list for that one. I'm never going back. And that's it. And nothing bad ever happened. The worst that's happened was they don't listen to you, but nothing bad happened. And there was some schools locally that, are notorious. And I would say to the agency, and it was almost, so I'd say to the agency, I won't go to this school. And sometimes I get a phone call saying, oh, we're desperate for someone to go to whichever school. We'll offer you. And they'd straight away say, we'll offer you $250 a day. And it's like danger money. I say, nope, don't want to go there. Well, I knew if they started off with an amount, I was like, there's something dodgy.
Yeah.
But
and I think, thank you for that. That's been really insightful, particularly for people who have completely dismissed it. And you might want to say, I am going to do supply, but I'm going to do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday only. I have long weekends, or I do 2 days a week, or I might do 2 straight weeks and then have 2. You can do day-to-day supply. Some people get maternity covers, so they are actually on supply, so to speak, but they are there for a prolonged period of time. I absolutely think it is something that needs to be considered, definitely. Hello, loyal listeners. It's that time in the episode when me and Sarah put out our little begging bowl and ask you to help fund our podcast, because it's coming out of our pockets, and our kids have been living on beans on toast for months while we've been messing about pretending we're live on Loose Women. There's going to be a link in the episode notes, and it's called Buy Us a Coffee. This is your chance to help fund the podcast, give a little something back. Thank you. A little bit of a question for you. What is bookkeeping?
so I one way I describe bookkeeping is, say, for example, you run a business and you've got your accounts. A bookkeeper is almost like the nurse, the end of year accountant. They're like the doctor. So it's keeping up with the day-to-day finances of the business in general. Whereas the accountant is the end of year, the doctor who oversees everything. That's one of the easiest ways.
And I think this is where it's important now to just slightly segue into this. A lot of our listeners have started their own businesses. Many of them have gone down the route of tutoring. They might have dog walking businesses. They might have opened shops. There's a whole host of ex-teachers who have gone down the entrepreneurial route. And some of them are absolutely stunned at just the skill set that they actually have. And one of the things I've always advocated, if you particularly want growth in your business, and it was one of the things I did, because as you know, I went from that sole trader to a limited company and then started to grow the national network that we have here. And if anybody asked me what advice I would give to somebody who wants to scale, is outsource. Outsource the stuff that is not your skill set. Outsource the stuff that takes up way too much of your time. And one of the things I used to work out was what was my hourly rate. So let's assume I was doing group tutoring, 25 quid for a kid. I'd got 6 kids round the table, £150 for my hour. All right. And marry that up with what a supply day rate is, and that's what I was talking for groups with me as that tutor. If I was then spending 2 hours on a Friday afternoon trying to reconcile my parental invoices or my receipts or whatever, 2 hours of my time is 300 quid. It's £300 on my hourly rate to do something that isn't my skill set. So very quickly, I worked out the value of my time and the cost of outsourcing. So I was doing exactly what business owners do with you. I was outsourcing my tasks. Social media is another perfect example of that. Creating social media content, doing the posting. Bookkeeping is a huge, huge example of how to get more use of your time and more value. So am I assuming that because you've stayed in the world of education and obviously the name of your business, Educounts, you are working with a lot of tutors who've done exactly that? They've outsourced an element of their business to you.
Yeah. So it wasn't the plan really. I set up as a bookkeeper. I was going to networking events, talking to many, many business owners from all kinds of different walks of life. But just me being me, the most people that I know are teachers, and what I know is teacher, and it's something I've always worked at. Could say institutionalized. But I like working with tutors, and I have done tutoring in the past, and it's an industry I know. So because at the point I was still tutoring a little bit, so I was going to networking events with tutors and saying, I'm also doing this bookkeeping, I'm also setting up this bookkeeping business. And at first I thought, tutors don't earn much. They wouldn't need a bookkeeper, they wouldn't need somebody. And then I actually got into it and started getting involved with companies which are, turn over 6-7 figures. They have started with tutoring and now running tutoring agencies, and they're making a very decent amount of money. I always joke and say it's a shame I don't want to tutor anymore, because it is a really profitable industry. It's just something I'm just not passionate about doing myself anymore, but I enjoy working within the industry still. I enjoy working with teachers. So I work now. So my bookkeeping practice has grown quite a lot in the past 12 to 18 months, and I now support 25 clients, which range from small sole traders who are just tutoring themselves but still making a decent amount of money, up to tutoring agencies who've got up to about 50 to 70 staff. and I work with them quite a lot, and I do quite a variety of bookkeeping and admin for those companies, and I really enjoy it because I'm still working with teachers, I'm still working in that industry, but just not having to do the teaching.
And I think that's what's important as well, because just to bring you back to that, so you train in bookkeeping. And by the way, I love the spelling of bookkeeping because there's so many double letters. It really is a great, great word to write down. So you start this completely fresh business. You are freshly trained. You've tinkered around the edges with a bit of tutoring, but you are starting from scratch. And I've said this over and over again, particularly with like when we're dealing with our franchisees, you are going into a complete territory where nobody knows you. So it is almost like taking a sledgehammer and trying to crack cement to get a foothold into the world you're in. And you're right, you start to network. And we've talked about this so many times on our podcasts. Sarah and I met at a networking meeting where businesses come together. And it doesn't just have to be. Did you not know that?
No.
Yeah, that's mine and Sarah's how did we meet story, isn't it, Sarah Dunwood?
Yeah, broken in a corner. I was not prepared to talk to anybody, which is the worst possible thing you can do at a network meeting. Yeah,
you've been over to Rutherford House, haven't you? You've seen the old business part before you came to Lim, where we've just moved to. Yeah. So what they used to do was they used to put on networking events where what happens is, to anybody who doesn't quite know what we're talking about, you only have to go on Eventbrite or Google or go on Facebook and look for your local business networking events. And they're normally in the morning, and you meet and you have what's called open networking. So you all try and balance one of those sort of really small coffee cups, that you can't quite get your finger in the hole. And then you've got it on a saucer and it's red hot and there's not enough milk and you can't work out on that big silver thing whether you press or it's hot water. So once you've got through that debacle, then you realise you forgot your sugar and you're going to have to drink it anyway, so it tastes rank. Once you sat there with an undrinkable cup of coffee, you do open networking and someone will come up to you and say, "Hi, who are you?" "Hi, I'm Sharon, I'm a tutor." "Oh, really?" "Yeah, I'm John, I've got a social media marketing business." "Oh, what does that mean?" "Hiya, yeah, I do PAT testing, or I am a cyber security." There's all sorts of people who go to these networking events. And then a good networking event normally has a speaker who gives you some business advice. It might be something to do with your website, or it might be SEO, or whatever. And then off you go. But you make connections. And then if you're savvy, you take those connections from face to face and create them online on LinkedIn. So you end up in this world where you are building your own team of colleagues around you, your own support network. But more than anything, what then happens is John, who does cybersecurity, is talking to Timmy next time they're at a meeting. And Tim says, "Do you know what? I'm up to here. All day on Friday, I was bloody up to here trying to find these receipts. Hang on. I was talking to a woman last week, Danielle. She does this. She does bookkeeping." And before you know it, people put people together with people, which is exactly what happened when Sarah and I, when she came over, because despite being in one of her darkest times, had the wherewithal to put herself into that kind of environment to see what's out there. So I think a nice nugget from you has been supply. And another one is the power of networking. If you've got a nice footprint that backs you up, and what is it you do? Yeah, here's my card. I've got a website, I've got a Facebook post, and I'm on LinkedIn. You have just started to advertise and brand yourself. And I'm assuming, Danielle, that's where you've picked up a lot of your clients, through networking opportunities.
Yeah. And just getting to know people within the industry as well, and going to events and turning up and things. But it was tough getting going, and I felt a lot of imposter syndrome because because bookkeeping is a regulated industry and there's a lot of compliance that you need to work towards and things. And I still get this feeling of, am I doing everything right? Am I doing everything that I should be doing? Because it is really important that it is done correctly and compliantly and things. But it was tough to get going. But often once these things get going, they do then skyrocket. And I will be, hopefully growing even further next year.
But this is an interesting observation, if I may. You talked about teaching. Yeah, I'm good at it. I did it. I wanted to do it. I did it. Yeah, and then when I was doing the research stuff with the college, yeah, I was good. I stood there, supply, knew my worth, nothing. The minute you found the thing you loved, you went, I sometimes get imposter syndrome. And that was the first time you had totally flipped into a version that you'd not shown before. Do you think that's because it's your passion, it's your reputation, you're not behind any institution? Or do you think it's the seriousness of how you take your work and what it is you're doing? Why do you think there was a flash of imposter there then?
It's just because it's a whole new thing. And maybe because I've gone into teaching young and you don't have that. Or I didn't have a fear of it. That's all.
Couldn't give a shit. Yeah, I know that.
And then when you're older and its ability lies on me, obviously I have got backup plans and things, but if it all goes wrong, it all hangs on me. But I am, I always think, well, if it does go wrong, I'll be back to supply. But
because anybody wants a maths teacher, it's been absolutely refreshing. It's been a really, really interesting one, and I knew it would be. Because when we were walking along the canal at Lymm, and I'm going, come on, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'll do the podcast. I knew you'd be brilliant, and I knew you would be everything I asked you to be. Be informative, be educational, and be inspirational, because you've got a great story with loads for people to pick out. And as you know, my dear, we always ask for a sliding doors moment. So have you given much thought to your sliding doors moment? And if so, we'd love you to share it with us.
I think it was losing my mum. Just I thought, there's more to life than killing yourself to get to a certain point and pension and things. And you may not get to live that life anyway. And now, I go to every school play. I go to everything for the kids. I don't have to ask anyone's permission. I'm totally in control of my day, and I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And it's just, I know I'm not going to get that pension, but hopefully I'm growing something that will, see me through to the future anyway. And I'll be fine. I'll land on my feet whenever I do.
Always, because it's one of those, isn't it, that and this is the thing I always ask people to consider, and for those people who are listening to this and they're not in a great place in teaching, and we know this is going to be coming out on the 23rd of December, and I know as it plays out throughout 2026 it won't necessarily be as poignant, but if you are one of those pit ponies who are sat there and you are unhappy, you are feeling you're in a toxic school, or you've been bullied, or you've just been told you're on a support plan, or there's things going on and you are genuinely going to write your Christmas off because your heart is heavy, then I always do some of my own accountancy, because I now don't see my life in terms, I see them in quarters, like a true businesswoman would. 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, and 75 onwards. Next year I'll be 54. So I'm in that third quarter of my life. So I think 75 is my next marker in the sand. So I might only have, got to do some quick maths, 26 Christmases left till I'm 75. No, it's not even that, is it, Sarah? It's 21. 21 Christmases left. 21 summers. And when you start to look at your time like that, and I'll never have another Christmas with my kids at home, hopefully. I will never have another Christmas where I'm in this good health. Okay? Because when I am 75, I bet I will give my right arm to be as healthy as I am today. So if something is robbing me of my joy, if something is making my mood depressed and is spiking my anxiety, then time is the one valuable commodity that we have, and it is not worth wasting it on what, quite frankly, is, and I'm going to go back to the expression I used at the start of it, just a job. So, Danielle, I'd like to really thank you for your time. You've been a cracking guest. We've endured the Scouse accent for long enough. We now need to go and cleanse ourselves by watching The Real Housewives of Cheshire.
Rude. That was rude.
But can you see how she's shaking her head going? No, you've been absolutely superb. We've loved every minute of it. And I bet there are people out with their notepads and pens listening to this episode. I knew it would be one of these. I knew it would be one. So on behalf of myself and Sarah and everybody who's listened, cheers, Danielle, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for staying with us during another great episode of the Pit Pony podcast. And on behalf of myself, Sarah Dunwood, Mike Roberts at Making Digital Real, we wish you all the very best, and we'll see you soon. If you wish to contact me directly for a support session or a clarity call for your next steps, please find my link in the comments below. See you soon.